Okay. So, good evening to everybody online, everybody that's watching on YouTube. Um, uh, Welcome once again to the War Room. It's a pleasure to have everybody online. It's a pleasure to have everybody that's joining us. Hi from Ghana, and hi to everybody around the world that is watching. Today's teaching is Submissive Wife Part 2. I think 2 weeks ago we covered Submissive Wife Part 1, which was great and very popular with the men, but unpopular with the women. So today um, we are covering Submissive Wife Part 2 as we continue. So basically, I think 2 weeks ago we took a look at what it means to be a submissive wife, and we learned that what submission meant. And we also looked at why God is asking us to asking the wives to submit, and why God created woman and the role of women and how to submit. So if you really want to hear this message, you can go onto the YouTube channel and you can look for submissive wife part 1, and you can have a whole recap and listen to that before you listen to this submissive wife part 2. Okay, so today I'd like us to look at how to get your wife to submit willingly. Okay. It's important we talk about this because I don't even know if like some men may even understand from their point of view what it means for a wife or a woman to submit. Okay, so submission, as we learned last 2 weeks, can't be forced or coerced. Remember, it's something that your wife has to choose to do willingly, and she has to accept this role. And just for everybody listening, just in case you're single, submission isn't God is not asking women anywhere in the Bible to submit to men. He's only asking the wife. It's only something that God is asking of the wife to submit to the husband. Okay. So we know that submission can't be forced or coerced. So it's something the wife has to choose to do willingly. She has to accept this role. And in Ephesians 5:33, it says, however, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So again, I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Why is Ephesians 5:33 asking the husbands to love their wives as they love themselves, and the wives to respect the husband? Well, Genesis 2, chapter 22 to 20, chapter 22 to 24 answers this. It says in the King James Version, and the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, this now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. So simply, husbands are to love their wife as they love themselves, because the wife is his own flesh. Wives are to respect the husband because you basically came out of him. He came before you. You were taken from him. You are his rib. You are one flesh. So Genesis 2, verse 21 to 24, it says, and flesh of my flesh shall we be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. So, how do you get your wife to submit? You need her to get to a place where she sees herself submitting to herself, because you're one flesh. It needs to feel like she's submitting to herself. She's submitting to you, but to herself. It's no longer her and it's we, one. We're one flesh. Because you are one, and because you love her as you love yourself. So ultimately, God is asking husbands something very simple. Husbands, love her because she's a part of you, because you are one flesh. If you start abusing yourself right now, think about it, man. If you start abusing yourself by punching yourself, using knives to cut your wrist, thinking negative, bad thoughts about yourself, insulting yourself to the point that you get so upset with yourself, then you just decide to cut off one arm or leg. What are people going to think of you? Well, society will say that you're suicidal, mentally ill. And maybe spiritually sound Christians may say you are being tormented by some demons. That's why you're self harming. So now, if you abuse your wife, speak down on her, beat her up, then finally just divorce her. What are you doing? God sees you as unwell, not of sound mind, spiritually imbalanced, not aligned with his will. And if you aren't aligned and you are spiritually imbalanced, then there's definitely some forces of darkness working somewhere in your life. So can you imagine the man that has divorced 7 times? He has no limbs. He is spiritually crippled. This is deep. I hope someone is catching on right now. The ways of man is not the ways of God. We don't take our time to see things the way God sees them. And he is the one that created us. The universe is his community and earth is his home. He built this house. He laid the foundation, wired all the electricals, built the plumbing system. Now he invites humans to come and visit, and they think they know his house better than him. So we don't even read the house rules because we think it's just a house. Every day, the electricals and plumbing is failing, it's not working, and we blame the house owner. We even dare to say he did a terrible job with the house. But we fail to realize we haven't even read the house rules, the manual he handed to us when we got here. God have mercy on mankind. God grant us wisdom so we will succeed in this thing called life. May he give us the grace to tarry, to persevere, to stay still, so we may learn and hear him instruct us, because man is really lost. We really have no idea. So back to the teaching. So basically what I'm simply saying is that husbands, if a husband can't love his wife as he loves himself, how is the wife supposed to submit to herself when the body she is in doesn't even love her? Just take a minute to think about that. Having your body, your husband, reject you, not accept you as his own flesh, is a spiritual error. It's not the way God intended it. We've already established that by looking at Genesis 2, verse 22. Having your body abuse you, cheat on you, not appreciate you, value you, is a spiritual error. So let's take a look at what the husband referred to as your body is supposed to look like in perfection. What does a loving husband look like? Simply, a loving husband looks like Christ. He loves without conditions. His love is unconditional. And that is perfectly summed up in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 4 to 10. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And I know you've heard this one 1,000 times, but it is the definition of what God's love is. So this is how we need to look at love. This is what love is supposed to look like. Forget about what the world is saying. Start focusing on what God is saying and expecting of you. So God is expecting husbands to be patient, to be kind, not to envy, be in competition with your wife, or boast about how you are the provider or you're better at cooking, even though you refuse to cook. God does not want you to be proud or dishonor your wife. He is asking you not to be selfish. He is simply saying, I know, my son, you'll be provoked, but don't be easily angered. Don't remind your wife about all the times she's been wrong. Don't rejoice at her downfalls. Don't delight in what is evil, but protect her. Create an atmosphere of trust in your home. Always hope in her and persevere through all the sufferings and trials. Don't neglect her. Don't leave her because things get tough, because love never fails. I hope you see it this way now. You see, the thing is, and wives, please listen up. God is not assessing you based on your reactions to your husband's actions. Let me say that again to the wives. God is not assessing you based on your reactions to your husband's actions. No. He is assessing you based on the assignment he has given you, which is your role as a submissive wife. This is a tough one. It's really tough. Simply, what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter what your husband is doing. God isn't looking at that. He is looking at what you are doing with the role that he's giving you. So I'm going to take my time to explain this one. Well, I'm breaking it up to scenarios because it can get very tricky with this one. And I really wanted to go deep into this because there are some people women out there that are confused. So in the scenario where your husband is not filling the role of a godly husband, so your husband is not possessing that character of a loving husband, and I need to break this up in different scenarios, as I said, because it's not a black and white topic, and it can be very, very sensitive. So please listen with your spiritual ears, because I know not everybody will understand. Okay, so scenario one. The husband is generally kind to the wife, but at times he gets angry, raises his voice at her. They have disagreements, they fight, they quarrel, etc., etc. But there's no physical abuse. In this case, God is asking you to submit. You can't leave your body. You can't leave your body, your husband, because of disagreements. I hope that one is clear. Let's take a look at scenario two. The husband continually beats her, physically abusing her, verbally abusing her. In this case, by all means, to my discretion, like I said, this is a very sensitive topic. And remember, I can't possibly cover all the scenarios in this. So have spiritual ears. There should be intervention by church leaders, family members, etc. There should be counseling. There should be, from the wife's part, a lot of prayer and fasting to seek God's will for her, so she has direction. There should be separation in where there is the extent of physical abuse, not divorce. I said separation, because God never wants your husband to hurt you. He doesn't want your husband to hurt you. He doesn't want you to be physically assaulted and abused. Remember, last 2 weeks we covered that God doesn't even listen to the prayers of the husband if he's treating the wife badly. Yeah. So in the case of physical abuse, once again, there are so many scenarios of physical abuse and what it looks like, and I can't cover them all. The physical abuse I'm talking about here is when you are no longer safe in your house and you feel afraid that your husband may harm you in any way. That's where there needs to be separation. And during the separation, there should be prayer, counseling, and guidance is needed to determine how to move forward with the marriage. Okay, that's scenario two. So scenario three, the husband commits adultery. He's unfaithful to the wife. In this situation, God gives you a choice. The choice to leave your husband. Yes, God is allowing you to divorce for infidelity. Matthew 19 verse 9 says, "And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery." But at the same time, God hates divorce. Malachi 2 verse 16, "For I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel." So in this situation, it's really about God's direction. I would personally say you need to seek God in prayer and seek what God wants for you. You need to go back to the prayer board, and ask, did you really marry the right person? Number one. Pray and fasting. Because you may have not asked that in the beginning before you got married. Some people don't seek God's will. They just got married. So you need to ask, is this my partner? Because I don't believe that everybody is your partner. I believe that God has a partner for everybody. That is my discretion. Okay. So I think that you would have to seek, is this my partner? You have to seek that from the Lord. And then also seek from the Lord, like pray and ask if it's God's will for you to stay in the marriage. And then see the way that God will help you to move forward in healing and restoring the marriage. So in scenario 3, in case of adultery, that's what I would do, because even though God is giving you the choice, he's also the choice to leave, he's also telling you how much he hates divorce. Okay, so those are the scenarios. And I just really wanted to go through the scenario just because I've explained what a loving husband is. And I just wanted people to know that if you're caught in this situation, submission doesn't mean you're completely submitting to some of these things. We've already learned that submission isn't forced. It's not coerced. It's something that it means you have to want to accept, willingly submit. And so we've already talked about what a loving husband now looks like, because through the love that the husband shows you and really shows you that you're one, you're not two separate. When there's a dictatorship, it shows you that you're not together. When the husband is dominating and domineering in the wrong way, it shows you that you're not one. So the wife may feel that they're not one. So really, man, what I'm really teaching in this is to get your wife to really submit. It's also, you have to play the role. You have to play your part. And the chapter of in Ephesians 5:33, which we covered, it's saying that the wife should submit. But before that, it's also saying that You need to submit to one another. And so submitting to one another in love, in unity, recognizing your role, adapting and fitting into your role and playing your role, it helps you to fit in. It's like two puzzles, two pieces of the puzzle fitting together. Because everybody knows who they are and what their role is. And this is the problem in society. We've been taught differently. Women have been taught to put on the pants, to be brave, to be strong because of oppression for so long. But you see, when you have a godly man, he's not supposed to be oppressing you. So you don't need to put on the pants. You don't need to have your guard up, because he's not supposed to be abusing you and suppressing you. He's supposed to be lifting you up, creating an atmosphere of trust, an environment that is cohesive. You know, if you walk into your house and there's tension, as a man, you created it. That I'm telling you 100%. You set the tone for your household. You set the tone for your wife to be responsive, to your kids to be responsive. That is a leader. The leader sets the tone. When Jesus walked into the room, people listened. People were caught by him. But at the same time, even though he was a leader, he served out of kindness, out of love. He wasn't afraid to wash the disciples' feet because he knew that that didn't take the leadership away from him. It didn't make him any smaller because he was humble. So do you see leadership how it is? It's not about giving, like dominating and just dictatorship. That's not what God is asking of the man. As a man, you know that you're strong. You know that you're a man. And so if you truly know that you're a man because you know the role you play as a man, you don't need to show it because you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As a little girl, because I grew up in Australia, and I was in Australia at that time when I went to Australia, like I was 5 years old, and there was no black people, like, well, Africans at all. And so I grew up, but I'm very proud of the way I grew up because I was very confident in who I was. I knew that I was the only black kid. I knew that I was the only black kid. You didn't have to tell me. I knew. So because I grew up that way, I went to school in America when I was older, in my 20s. And there it's like you have to prove that you're black. You have to wear like your hair in an afro, like, you know, to be Afrocentric. They're going through all these things, you know, like they want to be Afrocentric, you know, they want to wear like the African kente, they want to like name themselves African names. Like you can't, like if you're a black girl and you're dressing differently or talking differently, they used to tell me, why do you speak like a white girl? I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? This is the way I grew up. I'm not faking anything. But my main thing that I'm trying to say is I didn't need to put on the African clothes or the African hairstyle because I knew I was African. You didn't have to tell me. I know who my parents are. They're like typical Ashanti parents, Ghanaian parents that I grew up with. So because I knew my identity, I didn't have to put on the identity. It's the same in marriage. If you know your role as a man, the role that God has given you, you know who you are in Christ. You don't have to put it on. You don't have to put the toughness on. You don't have to demand and command. Jesus walked on the earth effortlessly, preaching his word, and people are drawn to him. He didn't have to command it with violence or anger or, you know? So that's what we need to know. If you know your role as a wife, as the nurturer, as the one that looks after, as, you know, the one that develops the house, you don't have to put it on. But once again, this all comes if we make Christ the center of the marriage, the center of our lives. Work out your salvations individually, and then you work it out as a couple. I hope I'm making sense to someone.
Yes, you are.
and me. So marriage is completion. You know, people have this feeling of feeling complete when they are married properly, because you find you found your missing rib. You found your missing rib. Do you understand? You found your missing rib. You're supposed to feel completed. And truly, the woman is the missing rib. You've become one, and together you multiply and become fruitful. So that should ultimately be the goal, that in your marriage, you feel complete with one another, because Christ is centered within that marriage. And with Christ centered within that marriage, that brings completion. Everybody knows who they are in God. They know who they are as a woman. They know who they are as a man. So the children know who they are as children. Because some these days, the household is turned upside down. You go to some households and the children are the masters. They determine what we're going to eat. If the child doesn't want this, we're eating. Yes, we're eating this, darling, tonight, because Timothy said he doesn't want potatoes. What? We're going here because he will not go here. Have you? It's crazy. Oh, yeah. My son doesn't. So we don't do this because my son doesn't do this. Mm-hmm. My child doesn't do this, so we don't do this. What do you mean? How did the child come and set the tone in the marriage? And then because the child is setting the tone in the marriage, the husbands are gone. The enemy hates this union that I'm talking about, when Christ is centered and you know who you are. And the enemy will do anything for you not to see this. So now that today we've learned what a husband, a loving husband is supposed to look like, a godly husband is supposed to look like, how he's supposed to set the tone, and how that will help his wife to willingly submit. And we've also learned why the woman should submit and what God is asking of the woman. We learned that 2 weeks ago. I hope that we've come to a better understanding of what a submissive wife is supposed to look like, and how the husband can help the wife come into submission. So that is the teaching for today. I think that we can open for some questions about what has been said. Please, it's open for discussion. If you'd like to discuss anything that was said or ask any questions, feel free to do so.
Yeah, okay, Father Rams, go, start Rams, and then I'll follow.
No, I had a question. I heard you, and I wanted to ask, in a relationship, so who is the one that is the owner of the house? Because I hear a lot of women say that the house is mine, so I make the rules in the house.
Rams is right.
The owner of the house.
So, how many women you heard say that, Ravs? If you pay the bills, somebody better put their feet down.
Sufficient women.
Okay. Okay, that's also a good scenario. Really good question. Okay, you see, the thing is, I personally would say, from what we're learning from Christ, I really don't care if she bought the house. Do you get me? With her money. If he's living there, he's a man. It's supposed to be your house, both of your houses. It's ownership. It's supposed to be for us. And the woman is never supposed to make the man feel like that, anyways. If you have more than your husband, you're never supposed to make him feel little. You should willingly give it up to him. Do you know? Allow him to manage it. In the scenario, you have quote, you have a godly husband that's living by the godly rules. So for me, it comes back to becoming one. If you're one, then why is it? It's my house. It's your house. Get out. Move. Blah blah blah. What for? It's your house. It's together, and that's the worst thing because the man is leaving his home to cleave to his wife. Remember, that is what God is saying. That the man will now leave to cleave to his wife. So you leave your home to build a home. And then women also have this fairy tale. Women can't wait to leave their father's house to get married. It's so exciting because they're so excited to build their home. So now imagine also the other side. You've built this home. And then the husband keeps on telling her, leave, it's not your house, it's my house. And she doesn't feel like it's ever her home. Mm. So there needs to be that togetherness where, you feel like it's both of your home. It's our money, not my money. Don't touch this. Don't sit here. Don't do that. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's us. It was never meant to be you, me. No, it's supposed to be us. So in that case, Rams, it should never be whose house is it? It should be both of your houses. It's our house. And I hope that answers it.
Oh, and get your name on the lease just in case somebody want to try something crazy. I'm just saying, you gotta be prepared.
Yes, together and legally, that's right too.
Should be on the lease.
Definitely, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's a lease, whether it's ownership, both of you. It should be both of you. It belongs to you both. It shouldn't be one, the husband's name. He puts his name on everything. I don't disagree. You're building a home together. It should be the wife and the husband. And the husband shouldn't hide things from the wife or vice versa. Or feel like I'm the one that work for it. Because that would be very unfair as well. Because if you have a scenario where the husband is the one that works and the wife is at home, just remember she's taking care of your kids. The whole time you're making money, building houses and putting your name on it. What was she doing? Sleeping?
Okay, Antoinette, you got to wind up the part A because we're almost running out of our time.
Okay, sure. So we will basically wind it up and then we'll come back for more questions as soon as it comes.